Car's personality is closely connected to its nationality. Japanese really care about reliability, Americans prioritize bigger size, and Europeans, they're all about chassis. And that is why this BMW X7 has such superb handling, even with a 5-meter long body, 3-meter long wheelbase, and a 3-row SUV configuration. It still drives like a proper Beamer. And here in China, the X7 seems to have met another version of itself in a parallel universe. This is a Li Auto L9, the best-selling 3-row SUV in China. It shares a similar size with the BMW X7, even the wheelbase are exactly the same, and they both start at around 70 grand in their respective markets. What's even more interesting is that the founder of Li Auto actually owns an X7. So in today's video, let's take a closer look at the biggest follower of that BMW. But this time, we won't be discussing things like equipment, intelligence, or cost control the Chinese car makers are good at. Instead, let's focus on what Europeans are known for, the chassis. I'm Harris, you're watching Matt EV. As they say about the chassis, the hardware draws the baseline and the tuning determines its maximum potential. So let's start with the hardware first. When we look at the structure, it's absolutely top-notch. A front double wishbone and rear five-link suspension setup provide excellent rigidity. BMW's special double ball joint design ensures instant steering response, and we can see that even with stiffness everywhere, the bottom is still all flat, which shows BMW is extremely skilled in designing chassis. However, when it comes to the materials, the X7 isn't as impressive. It has a rather basic single-chamber air suspension instead of a more advanced dual-chamber and multi-chamber ones that are often found in nice luxury cars. There are not much aluminium alloy in the whole system, and they even made the front lower control arms look like aluminium. Plus, the way they've stored these two chunks of dampers is also not what we call refined. Especially for a set of high-end suspension like this, cutting corners in materials and designs are really not that acceptable. And when you look under the L9, you'll notice that everything seems a bit familiar. If we ignore the arm covers, interestingly, these two rear suspensions are roughly the same. They both have a 5-link system with not much aluminium, and the way of using eccentric screw to fit different car width on the same platform is also surprisingly similar. What's even more interesting is that the disguising of steel lower arms as aluminium is also learned from BMW. But if we move towards the front, we will find no trace of BMW at all. Yes, they both use aluminium double wishbones and single-chamber air suspension, but because the L9 uses a 1.5-liter turbocharged range extender that doesn't engage directly to the drivetrain, the transverse layout makes more sense when space is a priority. As a result, BMW's front suspension, designed for longitudinal platforms, cannot be a template for Li Auto. And the solution is simple. They just mimic the Volvo XC90, which was built on the only platform with a transverse engine setup and a front double wishbone suspension. But I have to point out, just because they look similar doesn't mean they will feel the same on the road. The real decisive element is the tuning. So enough with the stuff on paper, let's get these two on the road. BMW is famous for its tuning, but some of its SUVs have a rather lousy dynamics, such as the X3 that doesn't feel like a BMW, the X5 that is surprisingly worse than its brother X5L made in China, even X3 and X4 with the M badge are still being criticized by many petrolheads. But its X7 on the other hand really showed us the true power of BMW tuning. We've already established that the material of X7's chassis is not 100% top grade, but its actual performance can really make you feel how exceptional BMW's tuning skill is. Whether you are driving it or just riding in it, it's just fantastic. During high-speed cruising, it feels stable and quiet, just like a speeding fortress. Almost all vibrations and noises are perfectly isolated, and the only thing you can hear is the delightful sound from the 3.6 engine. When moving at low speed, the car's nimble movements make you almost forget that it's over 5.2 meters long. However, when you encounter speed bumps, the suspension handles them crisply and smoothly, reminding you that it's still a big luxury car. And in aggressive driving, the responsive steering and agile handling are telling you that, despite the size, it's still a proper beam. And if you crave for more, you can push the Sport Mode button that tightens everything up and take the performance to another level.
And now let's see how the BMW follower really performs.
At low speed, driving the L9 does feel similar to the X7. The steering is light and the car responds well to your inputs. However, as soon as you encounter a speed bump, you can immediately tell the difference, because its rear axle seems to let in too much minor vibrations. And when you pick up the speed, the shortcomings become more noticeable. It's still comfy and smooth in general, but you can clearly feel more road imperfections and wider body lengths when making quick lane changes. Even though the Li Auto offers 6 suspension modes, including the absurd comfort setting in Sport Mode and even Sports setting in Comfort Mode, its dynamics may still make the driver lose the desire for spirited driving.
So you can tell that they did take different approaches. BMW was aiming to prove itself by finding a perfect balance between comfort and handling, while Li Auto was trying not to give any significant personality to the L9, only providing all kinds of comfort that different drivers have in mind, and minimizing the presence of chassis as much as possible. But I shouldn't be too absolute about this.
On chassis tuning, these old European car makers are clearly more experienced than the Chinese newcomers. And judging only from these two, this is true. But our Li Auto L9 has the ability to close the gap or even surpass the X7 in the future, because it has a complete set of powerful hardware and a self-R&D chassis domain control system.
Which means, according to data collecting and users' feedback, this L9 can evolve over time. And after only a year, it already had its huge upgrade on chassis comfort.
Speaking of comfort, apart from the top-tier Rolls-Royce, most people will thought of the Mercedes S-Class. Over the past decades, the S-Class has become a kind of golden standard for many car makers when it comes to technology and comfort features. And one of the standout features is the magic body control, which is exactly the same feature that Li Auto has given to the L9 in a recent OTA upgrade.
Yes, you heard it right. The magic body control can be upgraded over the air.
Unfortunately, Li Auto's magic carpet isn't a real one. A proper magic carpet system works by scanning the road ahead and analyze the conditions. The suspension then adjusts accordingly to provide a smooth ride. But this one doesn't use its powerful ADAS sensors for scanning. Instead, it relies only on acceleration sensors. In other words, a real magic carpet actively prepares for bumps, where Li Auto's only reacts after feeling the bumps.
Based on this recent upgrade alone, it's clear that its performance doesn't quite meet the standard of magic body control from Merc. Nevertheless, it does introduce some new possibilities for the future. In contrast with the BMW, the chassis performance is already finalized the moment you take the car.
Don't get me wrong though, I'm not saying that X7 is no good, because soon after sitting in the cockpit, you will notice its superior tuning. It's just for a big SUV that often used for family outing, this superiority is usually overlooked by most customers. And when it comes to things that beyond the chassis, it was the Li Auto that can make most consumers, especially family men, feel that sense of thoughtfulness. So the differences between these two are not entirely in capabilities, but rather in philosophy. BMW aims to impress car guys, so it built a proper beam which just so happens to be large. In contrast, Li Auto aims to satisfy the human nature, so it created a so-called mobile home with a set of smart appliances in it, which happens to be able to run.